Hi everybody, thanks for joining Create with Dee. Today I'll share with you how I made the center step card. So when it's opened up, it's got a little step and dimension to it, and it features the Frostwood Lodge designer paper, the new Stitched Stockings stamp, and the corresponding stocking punch. So let's get started making this card. We're going to take a piece of 4 1/4 by 11 strip of cherry cobbler, and we're going to use our paper trimmer in order to make the side components here. We're going to make 2 slits in our card that's going to make the center part of our center step card. So what we want to do is line it up at the 1-inch mark. So I use my paper trimmer guides at the 1-inch mark, and then I'm going to take my blade and put it at the 1-inch mark here. And we're going to, and there's a little arrow here that will tell you where it is on the ruler that goes on your blade. So the blade runner has a ruler as well, and we're going to put that at 1 inch. And then close it, and we're going to slide this up to 6.5 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and start cutting. I'm going to press and cut up to the 6.5 inch mark. And a little bit more. There we go. Okay, take it out and flip it over to the other side, making sure that the same end is down at the bottom, meaning that you don't want to go this way. Here's our original cut, and you'll just flip it right over. Line it back up to the 1-inch mark on our paper trimmer down below, and then with our blade guide, put it at 1 inch as well. Make sure I keep it at the 1 inch. There we go. So 1 inch and 1 inch. Slide it up to the 6.5 inch mark. Okay, so when you're done, you should have a piece of paper, piece of cardstock that looks like this. And let's go to our Simply Scoring tool. Okay, so we have our piece of cardstock, and we want to line up the 1-inch side. So there's one side that's going to have, it's 1 inch from the left side to the first trim or the cut mark, and one that has a nice big area. We want to have the 1 inch up in the corner of our Simply Scored scoring tool. I've got the marker guides set at 1, 2, and 6.5. Actually, that's not at 6.5. I better get it at 6.5 so that it works. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to take, and I like the smaller end. It's just a personal preference, but I've got the 1 inch, and I'm going to score till I get to that cut line. So I'm going to score and stop. Take it over to the 2 inch, drag it down to the cut line, stop. Oh my gosh, my bracelets are jangling all over the place. Come over here to the 6.5 inch score line, to the trim mark, and stop. And then what we want to do is flip the card, again keeping that 1 inch side over here, and do the same thing with the other section. 1 inch to the cut line, stop, 1 inch or 2 inches to the cut line, stop, and 6.5 inches to the cut line, stop. Okay, so what we want to do is go ahead and pinch these forward to make a mountain, fold back to make a valley. Come up to this, to our 6.5 inch, and pinch those together. Okay, so you're going to have this. A little cheat is to go ahead and line up the bottom, and then taking your fingers, kind of bring it up here to the center. I just find that that's a nice little cheat, and it seems not to get me as confused as if I would try to do maybe one more scoring. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take my bone folder now and make sure I have nice, great burnishes on all of these fold marks. Okay. Okay, so now I'll show you how I made this, the embossing on just the side panels. Okay, so I'm going to open all the way up and kind of lay flattish our center step card. I'm going to take the Snowburst embossing folder, and let me just maybe make a little more room here at first. Okay, and I'm going to almost weave it through. Okay, so that that center part of it's outside of the embossing folder. That way, the only thing that's going to be embossed are our side panels. And I'm going to put the embossing folder up to the score line. And again, I'm going to flatten this back out. And we'll go ahead and run it through the Big Shot. Get my platform there. And for this one, I found that if you put the embossing folder and cardstock on the platform itself and then put both of your layers instead of making the acrylic sandwich, go ahead and put that right on the platform. It somehow helps this card out just a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to run it through the Big Shot. And when I take it out, as you can see, this top, the center section is not embossed, but now my side panels are. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Okay, I've already gone ahead and layered our next items. I stamped from Curly Cute, the Season's Greetings, onto a 3/4 by 4 inch piece of Whisper White, layered that onto the bottom of our center step, as well as layered some Frostwood Lodge designer paper, and this is cut at 2 by 4 1/4. Okay, so next thing is we want to go ahead and stamp and punch out this little stocking element here, our stocking stamp. Again, using the Stitched Stockings, we're going to use this the Argyle. And what I did is I went ahead and I punched out what what the stocking punch would look like when it's punched. Okay, so I want to be able to see what the element is, and so I went ahead and I punched, meaning I want to see where the image is. So I punched the stocking square, meaning that I put the paper all the way down to where it would stop in the punch, and got this template from it. So now I know where my stocking needs to go. Okay, so I know I want to come in from the right hand side of the paper. This is, I'm going to stamp on Whisper White, cut at a 3 inch height variable here. And I can kind of square up my template and put my image on it, my stamp image, square up my block, and then I know that now when I stamp here, it's going to line up to my punch near perfectly. So let's test my theory and see how this goes. Okay, I'm going to ink this up with Garden Green. Okay, get that. And again, I'm going to square up my stamp to the paper and stamp. Okay, so there's our stocking. Now when I put it in with my punch, look at that! So make a template, hang on to it. I wouldn't normally, like, that was a pretty nice piece of green cardstock. I just did it so that we could see the contrast. I normally wouldn't. I just would grab some scrap and punch it and have it on hand. Okay, so now I can go ahead and line it up and punch. All of those things go flying. So we get a cute little stamped stocking. And this is the new silver glimmer paper. I love it. I've got to share with you guys what a full sheet looks like. Oh my gosh. Look at this. Woo! Isn't that beautiful? It's even more sparkly in person. Can't wait to do it. And a little really does go a long way. Look how many images I've punched out of just a little strip. And especially if you just use it for highlighting, like what we're going to do here. Let's see, I'm going to try to find a little piece that will get everything. I'm going to punch a little bit of my elements here and pick up another one over here. And so what I'm doing is I'm using up all of my little scrap pieces of this to get the cuff, toe, and heel image out. Punched out of that beautiful, beautiful silver glue. Okay, so with using some Tombow, I've got the little heel, toe, and cuff image on that we punched out using the silver glimmer paper. And I've gone ahead and using the paper piercer, I've pierced a hole in the upper left-hand corner of the cuff of the stocking, as well as laid the card flat and poked a hole through the center panel onto the designer paper about 1 inch in. And again, poked a hole on that. So I've got some cherry cobbler and white baker's twine, and I'm going to make a knot. Actually, I'm going to make a pretty good sized knot because I think my hole is a little too big here. And we may just end up taking some adhesive and keeping it together. Okay, the best thing that I have found for those of you that have bifocals like I do and maybe have trouble seeing threaded things anymore, this is a needle threader that you can pick up in the sewing department of any craft store or sewing supply store, and you get like maybe 3 or 4 for $1. Very inexpensive, but boy, it really saves on the eyesight and trying to thread something. So I'm going to take my needle threader through the hole and take the opposite end. I'm going to lick it just in case there's any frayed edges. And I'm going to find where that little needle threader is at and put that through. And then it pulls it right on through. And so I'm not quite sure if I've made it too big or not, so I'm just going to take some adhesive and just make sure that that stays down for the rest of the project. Okay, so we've got that threaded here. And so now I'm going to do the same thing with my little stocking image. This just helps in all of the frustration. So it's a little dollar of, what do I want to say, it just takes all of the pain out of trying to thread some of those little holes and buttonholes. These things work great for buttons. And I've got my little mini jingle bells. How much fun is that for $2.95? Oh my goodness. So again, I put the needle threader through the jingle bell, and now I can pull my baker's twine through that little opening that I'm not sure I'd ever have a chance of doing that. Of making it work if it's not for that little device. Like I said, oh my goodness, the joy of getting a little older. And I'm just going to make a couple of knots just to make sure that that jingle bell, I want it loose on my stocking, but I also don't want it to, go away or meaning to fall off or anything. So I've got it so it dangles just a little bit. Take my snips, and I would come back with just a little bit of Tombow and put it there just to make sure that that dries nice and secure. Okay, and when we're all done, we have this really super cute step card. Whoops, what happened there? There we go. Had my folds off. Super cute step card that makes everybody just right in the spirit of the holidays. So I hope you enjoy making this center step card, and happy crafting. Bye-bye.